You want to volunteer for that? This is from Exodus 20, verses 22 and 23. What's in Exodus 20? What do we think of when we think of Exodus 20? That's where the 10 commandments are. And so when we think of Exodus 20, this is where God literally comes down on Mount Sinai with his voice and speaks to the children of Israel. So it's kind of an amazing thing that he did for them. Okay, anybody want to read this for me?
So Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the judgments. And all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord has said, we do.
That's not the one from lesson 9.
Oh, I'm in the wrong one?
Yeah.
Okay, that mistake.
That was a great verse, though.
Well, it kind of related to.
Yes, it did.
Okay, I'll let somebody else do it.
Somebody else want to read lesson 9 memory verse? Anybody? Well, we're going to just let you do it again, Jennifer.
Okay.
All right.
Then the Lord said to Moses, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, you have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. You shall not make anything to be with me. Did I say that right? You shall not make anything to be with me. Gods of silver or gold, gods of gold, you shall not make for yourself. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's worded a little backwards. Yes, that's okay. Okay, so here he is. The Lord is talking to Moses, and he says, I've already talked to the children of Israel personally, and they're not to have any other gods other than me. That was the very first commandment, right? Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. But then when he gave all these additional laws, he gave them to Moses, and Moses had to give them to the children of Israel. God said, I don't come down and talk to humans one-on-one very often. So I don't know if he said that or not, but, he wasn't going to come down again, but he was going to have Moses, excuse me a second, but I'm uncomfortable. There we go. He was going to have Moses reveal this law. In the Sunday's lesson, Sabbath afternoon lesson, there was just one thing that I wanted to read. It says, God's law reveals him, that is his goodness, love, values, righteousness, and his restraints against evil. As the law is holy and just, so is God. So, what did we learn about the 10 commandments that was so important? What was the main idea behind the 10 commandments? Any ideas? What about the first 4? First 4 were in terms of our relationship between us and God, right? Between us and God. Thou shalt have not other gods. Thou shalt not have any graven images. Don't take my name in vain. Keep my Sabbath, right? So he had those laws in place, and the first 4 have to do with our relationship with God. And then we start with number 5, and we start talking about the things that we do for our fellow men this way. So it's like the cross. Up and down is our relationship with God, and this way is our relationship with man. And so then for the man, you get into honor your father and mother. You shall not murder, commit adultery, do not steal, do not give false testimony, and don't covet. Okay, so the last 6 are our relationships with each other. And if that's all God had given, would we have a foundation of how we need to live our lives? We do, don't we? I mean, this is true. But our lesson points out that these children of Israel had been 400 years in Egypt. And not all of those were in captivity, but they were 400 years away from any prophets, anybody that was instructing them. All they had was we started out with all the sons of Jacob were there, right? So we had the 12 brothers, except Joseph wasn't there. His bones got carried to the promised land. But they passed on the stories. So the first couple of generations probably had a pretty good education of what God expected of them. But as the years passed and the generations passed, and then they went into slavery, and then they kind of got wrapped up into getting kind of rubbing elbows a lot with the heathen people from Egypt. And they did not have a good basis for who God was and what he wanted from them as his people, as to fulfill the covenant that he had made with Abraham. So that it was the main reasons that he felt he needed to go on from the Ten Commandments, which is basic, good enough for those of us nowadays that have had a chance to study the Bible and we know why we are doing these. But the children of Israel had this background that wasn't so good. So God said, let me talk about each of these commandments and expound on them, make them more presentable to what the people of children of Israel could understand. And they called this the Code of the Covenant. It says the minds of the people blinded and debased by slavery and heathenism were not prepared to appreciate fully the far-reaching principles of God's 10 precepts. So that was what I was trying to say mostly. So then we get into chapter 21, 22, and 23. And what those chapters do is they go through all these extra laws that were given that Moses talked to them about. And I am really having, my heart's going really fast. I'm up to 110 beats a minute right now. I need to sit down, a little lightheaded. Joey, could you go get me a water? Just a glass of water. Not real full. Thank you, Joey. Okay, so let's go ahead and look in our lesson. We have several lists available to us through some extra studies that go over the different things that were brought up. The first thing that this lesson pointed out was how God had planned on taking care of them and their enemies. Okay, so they had all these surrounding, the land of Canaan was full of other people, right? Full of other countries, and they were all heathens. They were not children of Israel. And God had said, I will remove them. But he didn't do it all at once. How did he say he was going to remove them? Do you remember any of that from whether you did it today or this week? He was going to talk to them about, here comes my water. I kind of need it. He was going to talk to them about, he would go before them if they had to do battle, and his intention was that they would never have to fight. If they had stayed in perfect alignment, a good example of it, of course, is the Red Sea. When he parted the Red Sea, how did he take care of the Egyptians? Did the people have to do anything? Not a thing. They were wiped out because they had refused all the chances God was giving them to change their ways through all the plagues. He had given them plenty of opportunity, and they did not go for it. So I need to sit down. Whew. So he did not drive out. The Bible says that, and I'll even send hornets on the Hittites. Apparently they were extra stubborn. A lot of these people left Canaan on their own. God just kind of nudged them off. But the Hittites, apparently they were extra stubborn. God had to send hornets for them. But people say, oh, just to make room for the Israelites, God took away the homes of all these other countries and everything. But he spent the 400, he had made the covenant with Abraham, right? He spent that 400 years that they were in Egypt working on these other nations. He didn't just wipe them out. They were all given the chance to come to God. And you've got to remember that the whole population of the earth started with Adam and Eve, and all the patriarchs, they had lots and lots of information. The heathen people knew who God was. The world wasn't all that old for them to not know about God, because the patriarchs had lived for years and years and years, and they passed it on to many, many generations. And Abraham was a witness to many, many generations. And so God used 400 years to change everyone's mind. They could have all been in the promised land if they had turned their hearts. So we don't really see God as a vengeful God when you realize how many chances do we give somebody that commits first-degree murder, premeditated, violent murder. Do they get extra chances for redemption? They pretty. Well, mostly they go to the part of the jail that's for future electric chair people, right? They don't really get a lot of extra chances, but God in his mercy had given all these heathens a chance to come back to God, and they did not. So when he set up these laws, a lot of people saw a lot of the consequences. If you read through these laws, if a woman commits adultery, they stone her, right? They kill her. If somebody kills somebody, they kill the person that did the killing. There's all these rules that sound kind of violent, but you have to understand that he was trying to keep peace and tranquility and his presence within his people and keep them pure in mind and heart, because they were not geared that way to start with. It said that all these regulations and laws were issued to stop the avalanche of evil and to build an orderly society. So when they did do all these extra ones, that's what that did. I don't know if we're going to go through all of them or not. Let's see, there is a place here somewhere. Okay. In these other laws, instead of going through them in the order that they are in chapters 23, 24, and 25, 21, 22, and 23, we're going to just kind of go down through them as how they pertain to the 10 Commandments that they match up to. Okay? So let's do it that way. It won't quite be the way it is in the lesson, but most of you didn't study it anyway. So we're going to take the 10 Commandments and we're going to go down through and find the text that gave the matching. You know how we say, how would we bring that into today? Almost every Sabbath school lesson we say, well, how would we apply this to our lives today, right? Isn't that something that we quite often do? Well, this was how did the Israelites take the 10 Commandments and apply them into their day-by-day life? So let's start with number 1, the first promise. Now, this refers to, this one is the first commandment, which was, what was the first one? No other gods before me, right? And let's go to Exodus 23, verse 13. And let's hope these match up. I hope so. I went through some of them, 23:13. And this says, celebrate the feast of unleavened bread for 7 days, bread made without yeast, as I commanded you. Do this at the appointed time in the month of Abib. For that month you came out of Egypt. No one is to appear before me empty-handed. Now that doesn't really say it, does it? Am I reading the right one? 23:13. No, I was reading the wrong one. Hey, I can do it too, Jennifer. You aren't the only one that can read the wrong text. I just did it. Okay. 13 says, be careful, do everything I have said to you. Do not invoke the names of other gods. Do not let them be heard on your lips. He's saying, don't even talk about other gods. Don't even say their names. So they're exposed to other nations with their own gods, like they were in Egypt. Egypt had about 600 gods. They had a lot of gods. They wanted to have their bases covered to be. Yeah. And so in this text, we know that he's telling them to have just one God. Don't even put the names of the other gods on your lips. Okay, let's go to the next one. And I lost my place. Okay. What was our second 10 of the 10 commandments? It was how to worship God, right? Saying no to idols. It's talking about not having any graven images, right? And let's go to Exodus 22, verse 20, because this lesson skips all around, and that's why I said it was going to be really a hard one to teach. I had to find another way to figure this out. 22, verse 20, and it says, 20, verse 20, here we are. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. So, hey, David, I'm glad you're here. Okay, so he was saying you cannot have other gods. And if you did, you were destroyed. Now, a lot of these will have the punishment that goes along with them. And like I said in my prayer, the punishments went away at the cross. The idea of stoning people, the idea of cutting off a hand. If somebody cut off your hand, you cut off the offender's hand. The one that did the deed had to have his hand cut off, and an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, that sort of thing. So there was a lot of stuff that was lined up that no longer applies, but the principle still does. And that's why it's really good to study them this way. Another one for that is, let's go to Exodus 23:24. Should probably put my glasses on, but they make me sick to look up and down, up and down. Okay, do not bow down before their gods or worship them or follow their practices. You must demolish them and break their sacred stones to pieces. So that was one of the things that was given to them as a task to do, to make sure they didn't have any graven images at all. And then we're going to go to the third commandment. And what was that one going to be about? What was the third commandment? Thank you. Thank you. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. So what does that really mean? You aren't to use profanity that uses the name Jesus or Christ or God. Don't take his name in vain. Don't use it lightly. And it's a way to show reverence to God, right? Okay, let's look and see Exodus 22, verse 28. Oh, 22, 28, 26, 27. Do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. Do not blaspheme God. So that's another way of saying this. So there were several laws, there's several texts here, but we're not going to look them all up. But it goes into why that 10 commandment is broken down into another rule, another law. For those of you that came in late, this lesson I found an extremely difficult to try to figure out how to teach it, because it just jumps all over the place. And these 3 chapters of Exodus is just too much to stand up here and read. And it was hard for me to figure out. Okay, the 4th commandment was about what? What is it? Worship. The Sabbath. That's right. Sabbath, worshiping on Sabbath and resting on Sabbath. So let's look at Exodus 23, 10 to 12. Exodus 23, 10 to 12. Okay, here's the Sabbath laws. For 6 years, you are to sow your fields and harvest the crops. But during the 7th year, let the land lie unplowed and unused. Is that good farming practice to let your fields have a rest? Billy, I know you're really sleepy over there. I can tell. Didn't sleep well. Huh? Okay. You let some fields lay fallow, or what is it that they call it? You just leave it alone for a year, right? And then plant it again. Okay, so unused. Then the poor among your people may get food from it, and the wild animals may eat what they leave. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive groves. 6 days do your work, but on the 7th day do not work, so that your ox and your donkey may rest, and the slave born in your household and the alien may be refreshed. So that as well. I'm sorry.
The term for that is called layout. You let a field lay out.
Okay, layout. Okay, that's a phrase that I'm not familiar with because I don't farm. So,
Right.
okay.
But yes, but that is, and still, you would think that all these big time farmers is farming thousands of acres. And they still do it.
They still do.
This field they don't plow this year, this field they don't plow this coming year, and it's all
And it
constant rotation.
rotation. Well, they set it up to be another way to show the Sabbath commandment. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at how these extra laws that got laid upon the children of Israel all relate back to the commandments to edify them even more. Okay, so then we go into the 5th, is the commandment about what?
Honor your father.
Honor your father and mother. Very good. That's the 5th one. And let's go to Exodus 21, and we're going to read 15 and 17. 21, 15 and 17. 15 says, anyone who attacks his father or his mother must be put to death. Woo! They were really saying, don't just be nice to your parents, you better be extra nice or you might be put to death. 17 says, anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. So this was making it very clear how important the 5th commandment was, right? Very strong language. And then we come to the 6th commandment. Anyone having an idea what the 6th one is? Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not murder. That's right. The 6th commandment is about respecting life. Let's go to Exodus 21, 12 to 14. Okay, 12 says, anyone who strikes a man and kills him shall surely be put to death. However, if he does not do it intentionally, but God lets it happen, he is to flee. Let me see, if he does not do it intentionally, but God lets it happen, he must flee to a place I will designate. But if a man schemes and kills another man deliberately, take him away from my altar and put him to death. Anyone who attacks his father or mother must be put to death. Anyone who kidnaps another shall sell him or have him either sells him or still has him. In other words, if he kidnaps somebody and he either sells that somebody or he keeps him, when he is caught, he must be put to death. Strong language, isn't it? Okay. And then what was I supposed to read through? Just that one. Okay. So we have got things that match up to the 6th commandment. Now, what's the 7th commandment? Respecting marriage, right? Thou shalt not commit adultery. Let's see what it has to say on that. Exodus 22, verse 16 and 17. Whew. Okay. 22. Okay. If a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride's price, and she shall be his wife. If the father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must still pay the bride's price for virgins. Okay. And then it goes on with other things in that text. Let's see if it also wants 17. I did do 17. Okay. And what is the 8th commandment?
Steal, don't steal.
Thou shalt not steal. So is that protecting other people's property from whatever evil might possess? Thou shalt not steal. It's one of the top 10, right? Number 8. Let's see what it had to do with these extra laws that were put in place. Exodus 22, 1-4. 22. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he must pay back 5 head for the cattle and ox and 4 sheep for the 1 sheep. If a thief is caught breaking in and is struck so that he dies, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. But if it happens after sunrise, he is guilty of bloodshed. Apparently, you better be, if you see your enemy coming, you have time to do something else. But in the night, if you are caught like that, a thief must certainly take restitution. A thief must certainly make restitution, but if he has nothing, he must be sold to pay for his theft. Pretty heavy duty penalty there, right? If verse 4, if the stolen animal is found alive in his possession, whether an ox or a donkey or sheep, he must pay it back double. Okay, so the first one with extra more than double was if he actually slaughtered that animal. But if it's a found live, then he had to just double it back. Okay, that was the 8th commandment. What is the 9th commandment?
Bear false witness.
Okay,
Don't lie on your neighbor, don't make up, you know, right?
false witness is the same as lying. And lying is one of the top 10. Okay, let's read what it has to say, Exodus 22:11. Because when I was studying this and it was jumping around between these 3 chapters, I thought that just isn't a very good way to look at this, really. It's a little confusing. 22:11, because I hadn't really caught on that each one of them was balancing out to the commandment itself until I got finished with it. And I'm going, oh, we should put this in order. Okay. We are looking at 22:11, and this has to do with, what are we looking at? The 9th commandment is lying. Okay, 22, verse 11. I've told you that my Bible puts the verses all mixed in, so the text numbers are all within the paragraphs, and it's just so hard to find what I'm looking for. Okay, there's 13. I'm having trouble. 10. Somebody have that one? Oh, here's 12. Here's 13. I found it. Well, it looks to me like I need to read 12 to go along with it. But if the animal was stolen from the neighbor, he must make restitution to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, he shall bring the remains as evidence, and he will not be required to pay for the torn animal. The owner is to be, okay, so if the owner finds it, I don't know quite what that meant. Let's see if we can read another text. Let's go to 23, 1-9 for stealing. For lying. 23, 1-9. Okay, here we go. 1-9. Do not spread false reports. Do not help a wicked man by being a malicious witness. Do not follow. What would be a malicious witness? Somebody that tells a lie to keep a crook off the hook, right? Okay, so you don't want to be a witness that lies. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. And do not show favoritism to a poor man in his lawsuit. I've got to sit back down, everybody. I'm sorry. We're reading to verse 9. Can't. Okay. If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, be sure to take it back to him. If you see a donkey or someone who hates you falling down under the load, do not leave it there. Be sure to help him with it. And then verse 6, do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. Have nothing to do with false charges, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds those who see the twists of the words of the righteous. And number 9, do not oppress an alien. Now that's our foreigners. That's the word that the Bible uses for foreigners. What does your Bible say? I have New International. What does it use for verse 9? Stranger or foreigner? Okay. You yourselves know how it feels to be aliens because you were aliens in Egypt. He had already bought me a water when I was really having a rough time earlier, but thank you. I am not doing too well today, I guess. Okay, then we get to the 10th commandment. What was the 10th commandment? Not to covet. What does it mean to covet?
Don't want what everybody else got. Be happy with what the Lord has given.
Be happy with what the Lord has given you. I like that extra little added to it, isn't it?
I tell my husband that all the time. The cup is half full and it's not half empty.
We can see other people that have more prosperity than we do. Is there always somebody even the wealthy people have somebody that's still above them that has even more, has a bigger yacht, has a bigger airplane or whatever? Even the wealthy can covet, right? It's not just poor people that covet. Covet is a sin that is available to any person at any stage of financial loss of financial status. So the 10th commandment is reflecting self as being pure of mind and not coveting. Do they give us a text? In this thing, it does not. Okay, that's strange. Okay. After this, it says, these specific laws reflect the Decalogue or the 10 Commandments in the broader sense. For example, all prescriptions regarding injuries or harm point to the 6th commandment, and regulations regarding theft to the 8th, etc. The goal of these judgments is to help believers to be men and women of integrity. Oh gosh, I gotta sit down again. I don't know if I can, if that'll help or not. I don't know. Let's try it. Okay. There was another thing in the lesson. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know if I can find it right away. I had it underlined, so maybe I can. Okay. Here it is. It's in Monday's lesson. It says God, it's in the middle of it if you want to go to Monday's. God's law includes different issues. There were specific regulations against putting down or humiliating people. He did not want any kind of exploitation. In his mercy, God corrects the sinful tendencies of the human heart and restrains the people's natural inclinations. Society was to be kept safe and evil eliminated and good interpersonal relationships cultivated. Justice and love must rule all actions. That was what God was going for with these extra laws. I'm glad you're here. Excuse how I am today. I'm not well, apparently. I'm standing up here really having a hard time.
Do what you can.
There you go. Okay, so we had talked briefly about the idea that we didn't talk anything about the feasts. In this extra set of laws, there were 3 feasts that were established, and they were based on the different seasons of the earth. And one of them we know really well. Which one was that? the Passover. That's the one we know why extremely well. Why the Passover? Because that's when the angel passed over and killed the firstborn of the Egyptians, but the children of Israel were saved because they had put the blood on their doorpost. So the angel of death passed over them. So that was celebrated once a year. What was another one that was celebrated? Feast of the Unleavened Bread. Let me see if it's in order here. I gotta find it. Okay. The Passover, or the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, was in the spring, and that was probably mid-March or mid-April, the lesson tells us. The second one was Pentecost, or the Feast of the Harvest. And it says that it was also called the Feast of Weeks, 7 weeks after the previous festival. So 7 weeks would be almost 2 months later, right? 2 months later. And then the third one was the Feast of the Tabernacle, or Booths, or Feast of the Ingathering in the fall. So God set up feasts that were going to be every single year. I can't read that one. That were going to be every year. And they were to, what was the main reason for the feast?
Remember what God had done for people.
Yes, to bring people really in tune and close to how God had been taking care of them. Okay, I'm going to end about 5 minutes early because I can't take too much more here. Let me see. I have a couple things here that I have made note to. Yeah, I'm trying to be. I think most of these things I've already mentioned. The other thing that was in the lesson was the idea of the law of retaliation, or vengeance. What does God say about vengeance?
Vengeance is mine, said the Lord.
Go ahead. Vengeance is mine, right? It's up to him. Have you ever had something so horrible done to you that your first response was, I'm going to get even with that? It happens on a petty scale sometimes in an office where someone steals somebody else's project or does this or that, and they think of all kinds of ways that they could, get back at them for it. But what does he say? He says, vengeance is mine. And does that mean that vengeance is always made right? Do people get away with some pretty bad stuff? They do, don't they? But when will the true vengeance for sure happen? In the end, that's right. In the end, people will be held accountable. Okay. Let's see what else. So it was the idea of the difference between vengeance and justice. And we know that the children of Israel, right from the start, had judges, right? They had judges that they divided up the different clans, and each clan had their own judge, and things got brought to that judge rather than all the way to Moses, right? Okay. One of the things that was brought up was the idea of fearing the Lord. What do we know about the concept of fearing the Lord? Is that fear like be afraid of him? Respect him? Okay. The children of Israel got pretty fearful when the voice of God came down on the mountain to give the 10 Commandments. Was that respect, or was that out and out fear? The earth shook. The voice was like thunder. It was a way to definitely show that God was not some wimpy little God, right?
Fearful respect.
Fearful respect. So when he says fear God, you use the term of fearful respect, and you use the word of, what did, Jennifer, what, respect, is that the word you used? I also like to think of it as having awe for God, that idea that you just, and that's another word for respect too, is that obviously you're amazed at him. You are truly in tune with how awesome of a God he is. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close. I have got to figure out.
You can see what he did for lack of respect with Korah. and where he took the whole congregation in the corners, put them in the earth.
That's right. I had forgotten about that, but that's right. That was vengeance, wasn't it?
Yes.
God takes on vengeance on our behalf, and things are coming out the way they should. At sometimes where we know that the vengeance has happened, and sometimes it's not until maybe the end of time, but it will take place. All right, we're going to have a closing prayer. Is there anyone that will do a closing prayer for me? Randall, shall we close our eyes?
Heavenly Father, thank you for taking care of us throughout this week. Thank you for, coming here and studying the word. I pray, Father, that we can have something out of this, and apply for our lives and share it with others. Bless us, next service, God.
Amen. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to start the offering envelope around. There you go. Good morning.